Still working on that 1950s Hubert Herr uh, cuckoo quail clock. I told you I wasn't satisfied with the cuckoo side of it, and so I watched a video on cuckoo quail clock Hubert Herr for Robert by James Martin, and he's really good. And I'm going to show you what I screwed up on. In James Martin video and on all the other clocks that I tell you that the gong lever should be barely missing the next pen after the clock has stopped cuckooing. If it's touching the pen when the clock is done cuckooing, just like in his video, just like in my videos, I tell you that it could have trouble cuckooing. It could also gong on the about 5 minutes prior to the hour when the clock goes into warning. Well, anyway, here is the gong lever, and here's the pen. The gong lever is halfway between the two pens, and that is where I screwed up on. The gong lever should be closer to this pen, which would raise this entire wheel, and that way the low note lift lever is not catching on the same pen as the gong lever is catching. So I have to take this movement back apart and rotate the great wheel just a little bit so it's closer but not touching the gong lever. Like I said, the gong lever should just barely be off of this pen on this great wheel. And currently it's halfway between the two pens. And in his video, he uses assembler's putty to keep the main gear in place while he puts everything else in place. But I'm using Rodico. And I told you that you can use this stuff over and over and over again. It comes in a box. Mine didn't have any plastic in it. And so, anyway, you can use it over and over and over again. And so, here I have all the other gears out except for the main gear and the gong. And I have the gong where I want it, where the pen for the gong is barely off the tab on the main wheel. So now I could take the gong off and I could put the other parts back into the clock. And here you can see that I have more Rodico stuck in different places. That way the gears that I'm installing don't move, so I can install the other gears. You could also see that I'm only working on this side, the cuckoo side of the plates. I've already got the quail side set up perfectly, and because I've loosened the nuts up here, the escapement wheel and the birch and crutch assembly came loose. You can easily put those back in. That's what I'm getting at. So, like I said, you could use Rodico along the way to keep the gears in place for you. And now when I do a function test, I want you to watch the pen on the gong versus the pen, one of the 8 pens on the great wheel. It stopped, and it's like a 32nd of an inch off of the gong pen lever, and that's where I want it. So now I should be able to put the high note and the low note lip levers in, and it works properly. And this was a rookie mistake on my part, but it happens. Sometimes, working on these clocks will drive you cuckoo, and I believe that's why they call them cuckoo clocks. And by the way, the Rodico, it is dirty, but it can be used, again, for the purpose I just showed you. Now, as you can see, when I trip it, the high note lever, which is the long lever, is going to play first. There's going to be a delay, and then the low note lever is going to play. That way you can get that even cuckoo. High note lever, low note lever, and it stops. Do it again. High note lever, low note lever, and then it stops. So now it's time to put the gong back on. And again, the reason why I was having so much trouble with this movement and the other movement is because the gong lever tab was in between one of these two. How do I say this right? It was in between 2 of the pins in the middle, and it should be barely off one of the pins. It's the same way on a Hubert Herr, on a regular clock movement. Let me see if I can find one. It's the same way on a regular movement is with the 8-point star wheel. When it's done cuckooing, the gong now this is my display movement, and so it's not really working, but as you can see in this case, it's off because the gong tab needs to be this is the gong. This tab that hits one of the points on the 8-point star wheel should be barely off the gong tab when it's done cuckooing, and the high note and the low note lever are in between the 2 tabs. So it's the same way on this Hubert Herr, and I made a mistake thinking I had other issues, and I wasn't paying attention to where the gong lever was. Anyway, I own up to my mistakes. That is why I'm telling you this. It was my mistake, and if I misled somebody on something else, I'm sorry. But the gong tab, this tab right here, has to be barely off one of the star wheels when it's done. And as you can see, the gong hits first, and then the high note lever, and then the low note lever, and then stops. So I have to put the wire in for the gong that puts pressure on the gong, and then also put the bird post back on because I took that off because it was easier. And I also have to put the trip lever on. And so we're getting there. We're getting closer than what I have been on this movement for a while. A little bit of information. I was trying to straighten out this wire that puts pressure on the gong, just like there's a wire that puts pressure on this lever here. Doing my typical put the wire in the drill and then put it on this block and hitting it with the hammer. And I have other videos showing you how to do that. And I don't know if you could see this or not, but this wire consists of a few little bitty wires that is wrapped around to make one wire, and I believe that there's a protective coating on it. As you can see, it just came apart. And that is what causes it to be flexible without breaking. I thought it was pretty cool to see that. Now I'm going to put some soldering on it so it don't come apart. Okay, I got it back together. Are y'all ready for this? Remember what it sounded like before? Sounds more like a cuckoo clock. So now I have to get it in beat, and I think there's a wire touching, and that's why the pendulum leader wire stopped, and put the rest on. But I'm much happier with that. And again, the issue was because when I put the movement together several months ago, because this is a different movement, when I put the movement together, I didn't have the gong lever for the cuckoo tab coming off the what's considered the 8-point star wheel, just barely touching it. It was in between the two wheels, and that's why the low note lift lever was throwing fits. I hope my mistake has helped you out. And here it is up and running. And I'm going to leave a link to James Martin's video on repairing a Hubert Herr cuckoo clock. for Robert, number 28, in the description of this video. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and may God bless.